In my line of work, a single line on a blueprint can be the difference between a functioning building and a multi-million-dollar disaster. It was your negligence. Fernando Pacheco, the creative director, told me this in front of investors. The fire marshal, city planning. My name is Robert Carvalho, 38, an architect specializing in large-scale commercial projects in Chicago. I've been doing this for 14 years, known for technical precision in structural calculations and meticulous attention to fire department and ADA codes. At Almeida and Associates Architecture, where I built my career designing corporate campuses, shopping centers, and high-end residential complexes, I was always the architect they called when the project was too complex for errors. I led the team that developed the Tech Park corporate campus, 500,000 square feet, a project budgeted at $80 million, the largest contract in the firm's history. When the firm landed the $12.4 million contract to design the new regional hospital in Naperville, 280 beds and a state-of-the-art surgical center, I was the natural choice for lead architect. I never imagined that choice would place me at the center of a public accusation that nearly destroyed my career. The project began in June 2024. I presented detailed plans approved by the investors and the Department of Health. Everything was technically sound. Every emergency exit calculated according to hospital codes. Every corridor dimensioned for the flow of gurneys and equipment. I worked directly with Fernando Pacheco, 45, the firm's new creative director. He'd been hired from an international firm, known for aggressive presentations and a constant need to promote himself. In the first few weeks, Fernando seemed competent. He talked a lot about contemporary vision and aesthetic impact. I listened and kept drawing, focused on making the hospital function within regulations. The changes started subtly. Fernando would ask for aesthetic adjustments in rooms, alterations to reception layouts. I would review them technically and approve when possible, but in the following weeks, the requests became more frequent and less consultative. He started making unilateral changes without going through the technical department. He pushed for impossible deadlines. When I warned him about risks to emergency exits or evacuation routes that didn't meet hospital safety codes, Fernando repeated the same phrase. "Robert, you need to think less like an engineer and more like an architect." I continued documenting my objections via email, as I always did. It was protocol, paper records, everything. My father taught me that. In July, during a weekly alignment meeting, Fernando presented modifications that eliminated 2 lateral emergency exits. "It looks cleaner, more modern," he explained to the team. I raised my hand. "Fernando, those exits are mandated by the NFPA code. We need 2 independent escape routes in each hospital wing." He smiled. "Robert, always with his codes. Trust the process." Other team members nodded. No one questioned him. I sent an email that afternoon detailing the problem. He replied in 2 lines. "Modification approved as creative director. We're moving forward." In August, we had a status presentation with the investors and city representatives. The room was packed. Health inspectors, the fire marshal, firm partners, the full team. Fernando commanded the presentation, projecting the 3D model of the hospital with enthusiasm. I was sitting off to the side, reviewing my notes. That's when the representative from the Department of Health interrupted. "This corridor here doesn't have adequate ventilation according to hospital standards." Fernando paused. Another representative from the fire marshal's office pointed to another area. "These emergency exits are blocked. Where is the second mandatory escape route?" The room grew tense. The investors started flipping through the printed plans, finding more inadequacies. What Fernando did next changed everything. He turned to me in front of everyone and said in a firm voice, "Robert Carvalho is the lead architect on this project. He neglected basic codes and delivered a technically amateur design." The silence was instantaneous. I felt every eye in the room turn to me. I tried to speak, to pull up my laptop to show the original plans I had drawn, the ones approved by the health department back in June. Fernando cut me off. Taking responsibility is a sign of professionalism, Robert. I won't accept technical excuses from someone who doesn't understand contemporary vision. The investors were furious. They threatened to cancel the contract. They demanded formal explanations and spoke of contractual penalties of $3.7 million for rework. The meeting ended in chaos. I went back to my desk that afternoon, my hands shaking. Not from anger, but from something I couldn't yet name. I opened my computer and started reviewing the firm's project versioning system. Every modification to the architectural plans is logged with a date, time, and author. It was a safety protocol I myself had helped implement years before. I found the first piece of evidence in 10 minutes. The changes that caused the non-compliance issues presented in the meeting were approved directly by Fernando in revisions that bypassed the mandatory technical validation process. He had used his authority as creative director to push plans through without a safety engineering sign-off. Time-stamped records proved everything. I kept digging. I opened control spreadsheets, access logs, approval histories. In the last 45 days, Fernando had personally made 34 critical alterations, all without approval from the technical department or consultation with the structural engineers. He had changed corridor dimensions I had calculated according to the building code, removed emergency exits I had positioned according to fire marshal standards, blocked mandatory escape routes in hospital designs. Every modification had his digital signature and an exact timestamp. I saved everything in a protected folder. That night, sitting alone in the empty office at 10 p.m., I kept digging. The modification history revealed a clear pattern. Fernando always made the changes between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m., when the technical department had already gone home. He waited for the office to empty out to alter plans without witnesses. In one modification, dated July 15th at 8:37 p.m., he had reduced an emergency corridor's width from 8 feet down to 6 feet. The code required a minimum of 7.5 feet. He gained 2 feet of aesthetics by violating federal regulations. I saved a screenshot with the timestamp visible. For the second discovery, 3 days later, I spoke discreetly with the interns. One of them, Marcelo, 23, approached me, visibly uncomfortable. Fernando had pressured him and 2 other interns to redesign spaces that I had expressly dimensioned according to code. He said, if we accelerated the aesthetic modifications, we'd be hired full-time after our internship, Marcelo explained, looking over his shoulder. He said your plans were too boxy, that they needed a contemporary vision. I asked Marcelo to send me all of Fernando's emails with these requests. He sent 17 messages, all with direct instructions to violate technical protocols. I also spoke with Julia and Rodrigo, the other 2 interns. Same story. Fernando called them in individually, never as a group. He would ask for specific modifications with a tight deadline. I need this by tomorrow, don't talk to Robert yet. I'm presenting this straight to the partners, he'd say. The 3 interns believed they were being tested on their ability to work under pressure. They had no idea they were being used to implement irregular changes that Fernando didn't want to sign off on alone. I asked all 3 to document everything in writing. They sent detailed statements by email that same week. The 3rd discovery was the worst. I needed help from the IT department to access backups of corporate messages. I justified it by saying I needed to recover technical information for the project. The tech, unaware of the context, gave me access to the full backup of corporate chat messages. That's where I found it. Conversations between Fernando and the firm's founding partner, where the creative director was already building a narrative to fire me for cause due to professional negligence. He positioned himself as the one who had saved the project by taking direct control of the plans. Robert just doesn't have the mindset for projects of this magnitude anymore, Fernando had written. I'm going to document his failures and propose dismissal before he causes more damage. The message was from 1 week before the disastrous presentation. There was more. Messages where Fernando discussed with the partner how to manage the narrative after my exit. We'll communicate to the clients that we identified a serious technical problem and took immediate action by replacing the lead architect, he wrote. This shows the firm has rigorous quality control. They were planning to use my termination as positive marketing, to turn my forced exit into an example of responsible corporate governance. I read it 3 times to make sure I was understanding correctly. They were preparing my professional execution weeks in advance. I sat in silence that night at my desk, the office empty, just the hum of the air conditioning. Something shifted inside me in that moment. It wasn't exactly anger, but something colder, more precise. I realized I was alone in this. Fernando had the director-level authority and a direct line to the partners. I only had the truth and evidence that no one had yet asked for. I decided I would be methodical. I would not confront Fernando emotionally. I would not make public accusations. I would document everything irrefutably and wait for the right moment. I started the next morning. I downloaded all plan versions from the last 6 months from the firm's server. Every unauthorized modification was highlighted with exact dates and times. I created a comparative spreadsheet showing my original plans, approved by the health department in June, and the versions modified by Fernando in the following months. Every change was marked, every code violation documented. I compiled the 89 emails where I warned Fernando about specific violations of ADA, NFPA, and building codes that were ignored. I organized everything chronologically. The pattern was too clear to ignore. I requested copies of all automatic video conference recordings for the project from the last 90 days from IT. The firm recorded all important meetings as part of its quality protocol. This included the disastrous presentation where I was publicly accused. I received the files in 3 days. I watched everything, taking notes with timestamps of relevant moments. I found the recording of an internal meeting 3 days before the fatal presentation. Fernando said clearly, "Change those emergency exits today, it looks too boxy. Robert can review the calculations later." The sentence was recorded 13 minutes and 40 seconds into the recording with a certified date and time. I discreetly contacted a labor attorney who specialized in licensed professionals. Henry Fonseca had an office on LaSalle Street, a solid reputation in wrongful termination cases. I showed him all the documentation I had compiled. He analyzed it in silence for 40 minutes. "You have a solid case," he finally said, "but we need an independent technical expert review. I recommend you find a safety engineer and an AIA representative for a forensic analysis of the modifications. If they confirm your plans were correct and Fernando's changes created the inadequacies, your defense is irrefutable." I followed his advice. I contacted a safety engineer, certified by the Fire Marshal's office, Dr. Marcus Tavares. With 30 years of experience in hospital projects, I showed him the original plans and the modified versions. He issued a 23-page technical opinion confirming that my original plans were in full compliance with all hospital safety codes and that Fernando's modifications created serious irregularities that would prevent approval in an official inspection. I also contacted a regional AIA representative who issued a second technical opinion pointing in the same direction. I had both reports notarized. For 4 weeks, I maintained an absolutely normal routine. I participated in meetings, answered emails, worked on other smaller projects. Fernando increased the pressure. His demands became more aggressive each day. "Robert, I need you to take responsibility for what happened," he would say in team meetings. "Projects of this magnitude require professional maturity." I would just nod and go back to work. Inside, I was organizing the most complete defense I had ever assembled in my life. I protected copies of the evidence in 3 different locations: personal cloud storage, an external hard drive, and notarized physical copies. My lawyer reviewed everything, suggesting adjustments to the document organization. One afternoon in September, Fernando called me for a private chat in his office. "Robert, you know I respect your work," he began, his tone almost paternal. "But I need you to understand the difficult position you've put me in. The investors are pressuring, the partners are nervous. I'm trying to protect you, but you need to help me." I waited. "What do you suggest?" I asked. "That you sign a document assuming co-responsibility for the technical problems. We share the burden, it shows maturity, we move on." I looked at him for 3 seconds. "I'll think about it," I replied. I left his office. I didn't bring it up again. He tried 2 more times. I always gave the same answer. In the last week of September, I received a formal email from Human Resources, a summons to a meeting regarding my professional situation at the firm. Subject: termination for cause due to gross technical negligence. The meeting was scheduled for October 5th. Fernando and the partners would be present. I read the email 3 times. I replied, confirming my attendance and, using a specific clause in my contract that few knew about, I formally requested the right to present a technical defense to the 3 founding partners before any final decision was made. The contract guaranteed this right in cases of termination for cause. HR confirmed the request was procedural. Fernando was visibly irritated when he found out. He expected to just watch me sign termination papers. The founding partner he had been chatting with also seemed surprised. But the contract was clear, and the other 2 partners, more legally cautious, insisted on respecting the protocol. The meeting was rescheduled for October 9th, Thursday, 9 a.m. Main conference room, mandatory presence of the 3 founding partners. I would have 1 hour to present my defense. I worked for 3 straight nights, finalizing a 247-page technical report. I organized everything chronologically. Section 1, original plans approved by all competent bodies in June. Section 2, versioning logs proving Fernando had made critical changes without technical approval, with timestamps and digital signatures. Section 3, the 89 emails where I warned about specific code violations that were ignored. Section 4, technical opinions from the AIA and the safety engineer confirming the original plans were correct. Section 5, transcripts and timestamps from recordings showing Fernando ordering the irregular changes. I printed everything in 4 bound copies, complete with an index and color-coded tabs. I rehearsed the presentation 5 times alone in the empty office. The night before the meeting, I organized the digital files on a flash drive with all the audio and video recordings. I reviewed every section of the report 1 more time. I couldn't sleep much. I woke up at 5 a.m., made coffee, and reread my notes. It wasn't exactly nerves. It was absolute clarity about what I had to do. I laid out a formal suit, a dark grey jacket I only wore for important presentations. I left the house at 7:30. The traffic was light. I stopped at a coffee shop near the office, had a second coffee. I needed to be completely focused. I arrived at 8:45 a.m. on October 9th. The conference room was prepared, projector on, bottled water on the table. The 3 partners entered at 9 a.m. sharp. Fernando arrived 2 minutes later, dark suit, confident expression. He was expecting a quick victory. I greeted everyone formally and distributed the bound copies of the report. "I am going to present my defense systematically," I began, connecting my laptop to the projector. "I ask that you follow along in the printed report as I project the evidence." First part. I showed the original plans I delivered in June. I pointed out every official approval, Department of Health, Fire Marshal, City of Naperville. All the signatures and stamps were on pages 3 through 17 of the report. "These plans fully comply with all ADA, NFPA, and municipal building codes," I explained. "Every emergency exit, every corridor, every escape route was calculated according to current hospital regulations." No one interrupted. They kept reading. Second part. I opened the firm's project versioning system on the projection screen. I showed the logs of the 34 critical alterations made by Fernando personally between July and August. Each modification appeared on the screen with the date, exact time, and his digital signature. These changes were made without approval from the technical department or consultation with the structural engineers. I continued. Pages 42 to 89 of the report detail each alteration and its technical consequences. Fernando used his authority as creative director to bypass the mandatory validation process. Fernando started to shift in his chair. The partners were taking notes. Third part. I projected the 89 emails onto the screen, one by one. Emails where I warned Fernando about specific violations. One of them, dated July 23rd, said textually, "Fernando, removing this emergency exit violates NFPA 101. I cannot technically approve this change." His response from the same day, "Robert, you need to trust the vision for the project. I am approving this modification as creative director." I showed email after email following the same pattern. Technical warnings from me, unilateral approvals from him. The partners exchanged glances. Fourth part. I read excerpts from the technical opinions from the safety engineer and the AIA representative. The engineer, Marcus Tavares, certified by the fire marshal with 30 years of experience, confirms on pages 132 to 155 that my original plans were in full compliance with hospital safety codes. The AIA opinion, pages 156 to 174, confirms the same conclusion. Fernando tried to interrupt. "That's just an interpretation of the codes." The eldest founding partner raised his hand. "Let him finish, Fernando." Fifth part. The recording. I played the audio file from the internal meeting 3 days before the disastrous presentation. Fernando's voice came through the speakers clearly. "Change those emergency exits today. It looks too boxy. Robert can review the calculations later." I paused. I looked at the partners. This direct order from Fernando was given 72 hours before the presentation, where I was publicly accused of negligence. Certified timestamp, August 28th, 10:13 a.m. The silence in the room was absolute. I also played the clip from the fatal presentation where Fernando accused me. His words echoed in the room. Robert Carvalho neglected basic codes and delivered a technically amateur design. I closed my laptop. Pages 220 to 247 contain a complete chronology, proving that all inadequacies presented in the August meeting were caused by Fernando Pacheco's unilateral modifications, made without technical approval and against my documented warnings. My original plans were correct. I have independent technical opinions confirming this. I have time-stamped records of all modifications. I have certified recordings. I ask that you consider this evidence before any decision is made about my professional situation. I sat down. I said nothing more. Fernando tried to argue. A director's creative decisions don't need technical validation from subordinates, he began, his voice rising. High-end projects require an aesthetic boldness that traditional engineers don't understand. The safety engineer I had invited to the meeting, sitting in the corner of the room with the partner's prior consent, interrupted politely. "Mr. Pacheco, with all due respect, the changes you approved violate not only the firm's internal processes, but mandatory fire marshal and Department of Health regulations. No aesthetic decision can override safety regulations in hospital construction. That is federal law." The 3 founding partners requested 15 minutes to speak separately. Fernando and I left the room. We waited in the hallway without exchanging a word. He stared at his phone. I looked out the window. 18 minutes later, they called us back in. The eldest founding partner spoke. "We are ordering a complete and independent technical audit of the project. Fernando is placed on preventative leave until the analysis is concluded. Robert will continue his duties normally. This meeting is adjourned." Fernando opened his mouth to protest. The partner raised his hand again. "It's adjourned, Fernando." The audit took 12 days. A specialized compliance firm for engineering and architecture projects reviewed every plan, every email, every modification. The final report was 311 pages long. It confirmed everything. Fernando had ignored 67 documented technical warnings. He had pressured 3 interns to violate building codes. He tried to cover up his own ignorance of safety standards by blaming the project's lead architect. The audit concluded that I had zero technical responsibility for any of the inadequacies presented in the August meeting. The investors were informed with complete transparency. They received a full copy of the audit report and my original technical report. Their response surprised the partners. Instead of cancelling the contract, they praised the integrity of the investigation and the seriousness with which the firm handled the problem. They kept the contract in full and accepted a revised timeline. Fernando Pacheco was fired for cause in the first week of November. He lost his profit-sharing bonus, valued at $340,000. The firm filed an ethical complaint against him with the AIA for improper conduct and attempting to harm a professional colleague with false accusations. I returned to work the following Monday. I redid the hospital plans with the original correct dimensions. I resubmitted them for approval to the Department of Health and the Fire Marshal. The approvals came through in 3 weeks. The project was technically flawless, just delayed. I worked with the safety engineer to implement a governance system where any modification to the plans, regardless of the position of the person proposing it, had to pass mandatory technical validation. The partners approved the new system for all projects in the firm. 6 months later, in April 2025, I was promoted to Technical Managing Partner at Almeida & Associates Architecture. My first initiative was to expand the governance system, to create layers of approval where aesthetic modifications must pass technical validation before being incorporated into the final plans. I turned the incident into a protocol. Today, that protocol is a benchmark for architecture firms in the Midwest. The Naperville Hospital project was completed 3 months late, but with all approvals from regulatory bodies and no technical issues. It earned the firm a $2.1 million construction oversight contract and 4 more hospital projects that came as direct referrals from the Naperville investors. Fernando tried to sue for defamation, claiming he was unjustly accused. The lawsuit was summarily dismissed at the first hearing. The judge pointed out that all the evidence against him was documentary and technically substantiated. He couldn't get hired at other architecture firms after the negative references from the partners began to circulate in the market. He tried to open his own office, but without the credibility to land large-scale clients. Today, he works as a freelance 3D renderer, earning 1/3 of the salary he had here. I heard that from a former colleague of his. I didn't feel satisfaction, just a distant exhaustion. A year and a half after that day in the conference room, I wake up early and drive to the office with a calm I didn't feel before. I work with 3 new architects who lead projects under rigorous technical supervision. We implemented a system where no one, regardless of their title, modifies plans without the sign-off from safety engineering and structural calculation. It's not about control or distrust. It's about respecting the codes that exist to protect lives. I learned that rigorous technical documentation isn't just a professional obligation. It's also the best defense against those who try to use hierarchical authority to cover up incompetence with false accusations. The truth is, for 4 weeks in September 2024, I believed I would lose everything. A 14-year career, my reputation, my credibility in the market. But I also learned that when you do the work right, document it correctly, and respect the codes, the truth has its own weight. It doesn't need a loud voice or dramatic accusations. It just needs organized evidence and the right moment to present it. Fernando had authority and a connection to the partners. I had approved plans, time-stamped emails, and certified recordings. In the end, paper beats talk. It always wins. Today, I don't seek revenge or satisfaction in knowing he lost his job. I just seek to continue designing safe buildings, hospitals where people recover, schools where children learn, spaces where life happens, protected by correctly calculated structures. That's what matters. The rest is noise. I learned that true strength isn't about shouting the loudest in the meeting, but in staying calm while you organize the evidence and wait for the right moment. Fernando wanted to destroy me publicly to hide his own mistakes. I just showed what really happened. The difference between us was just that. And for you, listening to this right now, thank you so much. If you liked this, if this story resonated with you in any way, hit that like button down below. Comment what you thought, if you would have done things differently. I want to know your opinion, and if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe right now. We have new stories here every day, stories from real people who went through difficult situations and managed to overcome them. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a single video.